Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Interactive Wrestling Radio, right here on WrestlingEpicenter.com and YouTube, joined, as always, by Mr. Patrick Kelly.
Howdy, howdy.
And Mr. Nick Knoll.
All right, I admit it, I was Doink the Clown.
Nick Knoll was Doink the Clown. You heard it here, and it's me, James Wall.
Were you a conquistador, too?
He was the third conquistador. He wasn't one of those two jabronis. He was the third one. I don't even know if there was a third.
Well, let's be honest. I think we all were conquistadors at one point or another.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And not only that, but I was also a killer bee.
And I was also suicide in TNA. That whole Kazarian, Christopher Daniels splitting the role. No, that was me.
And all three of us have played Sin Cara at one time or another.
I'm doing it next week.
You are. Very good. Very good.
What color are you going with?
I think I'm going to go with, it says on Nebraska, I'm going to go with Sin Cara Red. It really freaked people out.
What would that be, Rio, or what would that be in his...
Good question. I used to know all my Spanish colors.
Rose? Rose?
I think it would be.
Yeah. So
I know white is Blanca.
White is black. I thought that was black.
No, that's Negro.
That's right.
Yeah. And it really is. I'm not pulling your leg. It really is.
I talked to a guy the other day named Blanca, and it was on the phone, and all I kept thinking was that he had to be green with orange hair.
Thank you. I heard the name Blanca. I think of the girl from Captain Planet.
That's a good point, too. No, I was referencing Street Fighter, the Street Fighter character.
I was just thinking of wasn't it like the blonde Russian, wasn't her name Blanca or something like that?
It's something like that, yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember. So the other day, guys, I was sitting down and I was watching a DVD release on the top 5 worst wrestling angles of all time. And, there's such a big description on what you can call the worst angle, and I think you have to define the word angle as well. They kind of made it like moments rather than angles, in my opinion. And while their list was really good, I think that was other things that deserved at least honorable mentions. And as a result, I think we're going to try and reset the list here and give the definitive top 5 worst angles of all time in wrestling. And I think we all have a little bit of interesting lists here put together, and I think Nick Knoll would like to go first. Nick, would you like to take away?
Sure, and I think this is going to be kind of fun. I think for once I'm going to have kind of the list that nobody else would have. So, number 5, Steve Austin's heel turn / going crazy and going, what? After everything.
Which is still here today, and I still hate.
Yeah, if you want to know why I prefer Rock over Austin, that's a big reason why.
Yeah. Well, I mean, here's the thing. The angle had some potential because when you turn the top baby face into a heel, it can work if you do it correctly. This was not done correctly. It was done completely out of nowhere. And, then you had all the weird stuff of Austin, trying to play the guitar and sing to Vince like a 15-year-old trying to get into his girlfriend's pants. I mean, what the hell were they thinking with this? You have Steve Austin turning heel, and he sings. Now, I get his voice was horrible. I guess they were hoping that people would hate him, but oh, God, who even knows? All right, number 4, another WWE one, and that is Vince is killed / his limo blows up. We all remember this We all kind of remember this angle. It was Vince had gone crazy after losing the ECW championship, and then he got into his limo, and it exploded. And the next couple weeks were basically us wondering who committed a murder on national television. And well, fortunately, they had the good sense to end this angle when a very real murder happened. That's all I'm going to say about that.
Yes, well, I think I have to add one thing to that.
Uh-oh.
Double homicides are only cool if they happen in Hulk Hogan movies.
Okay. James with his weird comment of the week there.
Well, I mean,
I'm not
the
even
thing
sure
was
what you're talking about.
Here's what I'm talking about. The reason why they ended the Vince exploded limo angle was the Benoit double homicide/suicide came to pass. And the reason I referenced the double homicide in a Hogan movie is because essentially the end of No Holds Barred was Hogan throws Zeus into the ring, which collapses, killing him, and then backs the evil boss into his office, where he sticks his finger in a light socket and electrocutes himself.
Yeah.
So apparently, at the end of a Hulk Hogan movie, a feel-good moment is a double homicide.
Well, it was a Hulk Hogan movie, so, I mean...
The best Hulk Hogan movie, I might add. But go ahead, Nick.
All right, number 3 is WCW versus Battle Dome. For those that don't remember Battle Dome, it was an American Gladiators rip-off show where basically, guys came out with pro wrestling style personas. You had the Greek god Michael O'Dell. You had the Commander, who was supposed to be a military guy. You had the biker. I actually did watch the show, so I remember a lot of this. And instead of the problem is these guys weren't pro wrestlers, but yet they wound up feuding with WCW, and it led to the epic moment where Rick Steiner plays a game with the black guy from the Expendables, where Steiner has to hop over walls wearing boxing gloves.
I do not even remember this.
It was right at the end.
But you're going to love my list, because it actually also involves Rick Steiner, so you're going to love that.
Right.
Okay, that was an interesting one.
I love Rick Steiner, by the way. It's just that was a horrible moment. And this was when WCW was so... This is kind of at the point where Vince Russo and Eric Bischoff were gone again, and WCW was just kind of waiting to die, and somebody threw something against the wall, and they said, well, these guys are kind of like wrestlers. Let's do something and see if it gets press.
I'm going to tell you what, I don't even remember it. I'm sure it happened, but I don't remember it.
Oh, yeah. Well, the good news out of this was True Love did flourish as Scott Steiner's valet, Miraja, met her husband, who later played Titan on American Gladiators.
Ah.
Just a little trivia note there. Number 2, I feel like I'm beating a dead horse, but I'm going to beat up on WCW a little bit again. But this time it's early WCW, the Black Scorpion. In an effort to create a new rival for Sting, and not rehash the Ric Flair feud, WCW decided to create a mystery character from Sting's past, who turned out to be a magician that could take over people's mind, causing stagehands and random people to attack Sting, turned a lady into a tiger, and then guess what? It was Ric Flair the whole time.
It's funny, off the air we were just joking about, or actually it was on the air, we were joking about masked characters, and that was another weird one.
Yeah, well, the idea was somewhat decent. It's okay, we need a new rival for Sting because he's already feuded with Flair, but instead of, just paying big money and bringing in someone to play a new rival, they never picked anybody, and then it got to be Starrcade, and they're like, oh, shit, what are we going to do? Hey, Rick, here, go put on this outfit, come out of a giant spaceship, and in a couple weeks we'll let you regain the world title. All right, woo!
All right. And what was number 1?
Number 1, Vince McMahon versus God, in which is some tasteless angles as Vince was feuding with Shawn, and everyone knows Shawn's a born-again Christian. And famously, it led to the infamous match where Vince fought God, and it was a big light. And at one point, Vince gets on the microphone and is yelling, "Come back, God! Come back! Don't be afraid, God!" Oh, holy shit.
And the thing is, honest to God here, I thought they were going to end the match with Vince being struck by lightning. I really thought that's where they were going with it.
I had said that, and the reason why is because at the Rumble they did that with the ring. At the Rumble, The Undertaker had lightning strike the ring.
That's right here, yeah. So it was in their budget.
Yeah. Well, I was convinced Vince was going to be walking up the ramp, and the ramp was going to open up, and fire was going to shoot out of it, and everyone was just going to be like.
And Mae Young's hand was going to come reaching out and drag him to hell.
Oh God! Oh,
you know what?
nice.
Maybe God was the one who blew up the set. Remember when Vince was doing the $1 million giveaway thing and the set blew up and he was like left in a pile of rubble and he was injured and they took him away on the stretcher and everything and they never explained it or followed up on it ever again? Well, God did it.
Oh, Paul, I can't feel my legs, Paul.
Oh. Okay.
That's another thing. You know, if we're going to, I'm not a TNA defender by any stretch of the imagination, but when TNA catches flack for dropping angles and WWE does something like that and never follows up on it, I mean, come on.
Yeah. All right, I got my list, guys. I'm not going to be on for the whole show tonight. I'm not going to be on very long at all, but here's my list. Nick has got a hell of a list, but here's my list, and I'm going to start out with a quote that we've used on the show before, but you better not touch my puppy. The worst angle of all time, number 5 on the list, is going to be Chris Jericho and Triple H with the love triangle that never was with Stephanie McMahon, where Jericho just essentially became Stephanie's bitch.
A bitch.
Yeah. It was horrible. But
well, he was pussy without the pussy.
Exactly. That's exactly right. Number 4 is going to be another late-era WCW one. It's going to be Sting's ill-gotten heel turn from 1999, where he was supposed to heel on Hogan and become a heel character, was hitting Bret Hart with a bat. But for some reason, nobody gave him the memo that when you're a heel character, you have to at least change your style in some way and not pander to the crowd. Because despite the fact he was doing dastardly things, he would pound his chest and go to the corner and have a smile on his face going, woo! And basically...
WCW fans got sick of Hogan.
Well, yeah, but he was also hitting Bret and everybody, so...
Well, WCW fans didn't like Bret that much either.
They kind of viewed him as
it was a very strange time.
Look, he turned heel on the guys to turn heel on.
Essentially, but he also did it to Goldberg, and he still was. I mean, obviously Goldberg got more cheered because he was the heat was still there for Goldberg, but Sting was still getting the face pop. I mean, essentially Sting didn't want it to work, so it didn't work. Number 3, I have down as actually the Vince explosion. So we double up on that one, Nick. Split it in the limo. Number 2 is one of my favorite of all time because it was just the most ridiculously done thing ever. And I wish they would have followed up on it because it would have been amazing if they had the long promo where Rick Steiner was battling on the microphone Chucky. That was bizarre beyond words. And they should have followed up with it at Halloween Havoc. They should have had like a chainsaw, cut a hole in the ring, and then see a Chucky doll's head come up and bite his arm or something like that. They should have just done something completely ridiculous with it.
Well, if Beaker can do a run-in, I think Chucky can do a run-in too. So, yeah.
It was just a ridiculous thing. I'm going to give number 1 here, by the way, has to go to Katie Vick. There's just it is on their list, the Kayfabe Commentaries list. I can't imagine there was anything worse in the wrestling business.
All right, that's a really good list here. I like it. All 3 of us kind of came up with different things overall.
I do want to give one honorable mention, and this is kind of a funny thing. Late era WCW again, when they were doing the new blood angle where they would drop blood from the ceiling on people, but they apparently employed somebody who had no aim whatsoever. There was one time they were supposed to drop blood in the ring, and they missed the ring entirely and dropped it on the aisleway. And you just see the crowd all staring at the aisleway with the actions in the ring, and then I forget who it was in the ring, but they just kind of fell down, like with no storyline as to why they just fell. It was just ridiculously done. It was the same exact time as well that Hogan was in the ring with a chair going nuts on people, and a kid with a Sting mask on jumped in the ring, and Hogan came about 2 inches away from smashing him in the head with a steel chair. And he stopped
How old
him.
Was the kid?
Oh, the kid was an indie wrestler, so he's probably like 19. But Hogan stopped for a sec. He had the chair above his head. He's about to swing, and you see his the look on his face like, uh-oh, I shouldn't do that. So he stopped. And then you see Donuts Dillinger crawl in through the middle rope and through the bottom and the middle rope and grab this kid, tackle him like a football tackle. It was pretty ridiculous.
Oh wow! Yeah, WCW had a problem with fans jumping in, but let's get to my list. there are a lot of bad ones out there, so I'm not surprised that our lists were fairly different. But number 5, the gay wedding angle. Now, I don't know why Glad was so upset over Lenny and Lodi in WCW and why Billy and Chuck was okay. I've never gotten a satisfactory explanation for that. And in the end, WWE just made them look like fools at the end, and I knew that was going to happen. The angle was stupid. The segment was just a cheap ploy for attention. I didn't like it. And it was tied in with the fucking hot lesbian action thing, which, again, okay, Glad, they're using your lifestyle as a cheap marketing ploy, and that's okay, but Lenny and Lodi isn't. All right, I'm just going to pretend that makes sense, and WWE made you out to be fools, and I hope you're proud of yourself. All right, so that's number 5. Number 4, kind of a tie, but it's the doppelganger angle. Undertaker versus Undertaker and Kane versus Kane. On paper, doing something like this could actually be kind of cool, but they've never done it right. They just tried it again with Sin Cara, and that was, not as disastrous as Taker and Taker or Kane and Kane, but it was, nothing special or memorable or anything. And, when I think of the Undertaker versus Undertaker angle, and they got Leslie Nielsen going through the building, looking for clues as to why there were 2 Undertakers. And the Kane angle, we all know that was a complete disaster. So, yeah, I don't know why. Doppelganger angle? May 19th. Beware May 19th. Yeah, so both of those were disasters, and maybe that idea just doesn't work. I don't know. Number 3, the Dungeon of Doom. Sullivan, my son, I have organized this evil religious cult that is devoted to destroying Hulk Hogan. And every week on WCW television, they would do these segments that were right out of the old school Super Friends cartoons. Meanwhile, at the Dungeon of Doom, the set was ridiculous. The point of the whole thing was ridiculous. It was, Hulkamania was really on its last legs by that point, and this was like the last gasp. I was like, you have to invent this ridiculous supervillain group to go fight Hulk Hogan, and it was not good. It was funny, but it wasn't good. Number 2, the WCW. What'd you say?
There was an angle in there where Hogan wound up in the Dungeon of Doom. He reaches out to like a bunch of water and he yells out, "Ah, it's not hot." Like, okay.
That was when the Giant attacked him. I remember that. That might have been the Giant's debut.
Yeah, but I think the less said about that moment, the better.
Yeah. Number 2, the WCW ECW invasion. You kind of touched up on it a little bit with the Austin heel turn, but I'm surprised that this didn't make anybody's list. I mean, okay, for those of us who lived through the Monday Night Wars period, and we had these visions, these ideas of what a WCW invasion or a WWF WCW crossover would be like, and even throwing ECW into the mix. I mean, at the time, those were the big 3, and very distinct, very different brands with their own unique set of characters. And we had all these dream matches in our heads and all these cool things they could have done. And it was the most watered-down, half-assed, disappointing thing that they've ever done. And it all boiled down to yet another McMahon family power struggle, which that was in 2001, and it had gotten old by then, and they were still doing it like 7-8 years later, which, fuck us, right? But, I mean, what
They're
they
doing
did
it right
with
now.
Yeah, they kind of, yeah, you're right. It's just, I can't believe that, like, I don't know if it was just Vince's ego that he couldn't allow WCW to look good. I thought joining WCW and ECW together was about as oxymoronic as you can possibly be. That just wouldn't work at all. I don't know. The whole thing was just a mess. The whole thing was just a complete travesty, and it was so bad that WWE never references it. That's the 4-month time period, that and Benoit's title reign in 2004. Those 2 periods in time are just completely glossed over, never mentioned, never referenced. Yeah, so there's that. And my number 1, I'm going to agree with James here, Katie Vick. Now, we can talk about things like the finger poke of doom. We can talk about things like the invasion angle, I just mentioned it. things that were more damaging to the business, probably. But Katie Vick was the most repulsive, offensive thing I've ever seen on a wrestling program. And like I said, there were probably more damaging angles, but that was the most upset and offended I've ever been while watching a wrestling show. And I cannot believe that made the air. I cannot believe that Vince allowed it. I can't believe that anybody in that WWE creative staff found it funny. It was a complete train wreck.
That was like a Rob Black angle, and it made it to WWE TV somehow. It's like, yeah, maybe XPW would do that, but why? And they did, by the way. They killed off, I think it was Lizzie Valentine. No, not Lizzie Valentine. There was another one. I don't remember her name. They killed a diva once.
They killed a character?
Yeah. One of the bimbo porno girls. I think that her contract with the porn company had expired, so they killed her on TV. Not legitimately, just the character.
Right. Well, you know what? WWE's killed a character before. Al Wilson. Al Wilson.
And Paul Bearer.
And Paul Bearer, yeah. And Tim White.
Yeah,
and Sierra, the deerhead.
And that's another weird one. You know, was that supposed to be funny? Just like he keeps trying to kill himself and doesn't succeed? I mean, I didn't get that.
Well, I think the idea was that he wanted it what they were going for was that the Hell in a Cell was so scarring that it just drove him nuts, and Tim White just killed himself. Dealing with the grief of having been in Hell in a Cell or whatever, but it came off as so tacky and ridiculous. And then it's like, oh, no, we were trying to be funny. Exactly. Well, then when it... Yeah, it was like a web series, wasn't it?
Yeah,
it was a web series on WWE.com that they called Lunchtime Suicide.
Oh, my God. Did Benoit put an end to that series, too?
No, what it was is like he then decided to kill Josh Matthews.
That was the whole thing. It's like they wanted it to be like a serious, dramatic thing, but people hated it so much. They're like, oh, no, we were just trying to be funny. Look, it's a joke. It's a running gag. We didn't kill anybody.
Can we even make a list of this, or are we just going to agree that these all sucked?
I think we should just agree they all suck. Take your pick, ladies and gentlemen.
I think you got to give Katie Vick number one.
Yeah.
Because nothing can top that. That was just like a...
Maybe I'm giving birth to a hand.
Let me ask you this. When you go to the supermarket, and if you're wearing a wrestling shirt, WWE or not, and somebody comes up to you and says, did you see the Katie Vick angle? Is there any way whatsoever you could say, well, I see what they were going for? Is there any way you could do that? Is there any way to say, well, I found it somewhat amusing? Is there any way whatsoever that you could give any kind of spin on it to make it sound like you weren't as repulsed as you could possibly be? I mean, it was just a stupid thing that it made no sense. It didn't make any, nobody talked about it in the media. It just kind of was a wrestling fans kind of all got together and said, whoa, what the hell was that?
That was the last gasp of the Attitude Era, where they were just going for shock value, and that was like, once you've done that, nothing's shocking anymore. I mean, you've gone as far as you can possibly go.
Screwing your brains out is a funny line. However, how it fits on a wrestling show is just beyond me.
And the fact that he actually pulled the brain out and was like, didn't he like pull the brain out at the end?
You saw the hand.
Yeah, it was like Jello or something. Yeah.
And you would think that Triple H has the power to shoot something down like that. You would think that he would know. Look, Vince, I'm not putting on a G-string and getting in there with a casket, with a dead chick. I'm not doing that.
Well, here's the thing, though. Triple H even admitted in a recent interview, sometimes if it makes him laugh, he'll do it even if he doesn't think it will get over with the audience. Why he has so many bad puns when he's in the ring. I'm willing to bet he thought that was funny because I think he and Vince get along like that. So I think Triple H thought it was going to be hilarious and was going to work.
Is that like?
Well, this is the same guy that said that Bruce Banner was. Okay, what's a hobbit? I don't know what a hobbit is. So what did he say, that Bruce Banner hosted The Price is Right, and, you can kill a dog by cutting its tail off.
He did not know that Bruce Banner was the guy who was the Incredible Hulk. He thought that it was Bob Barker.
Okay, it was a bad joke.
It was a bad joke. As for the other stuff, it's just like, I don't know. You can tell sometimes when he thinks something's funny, and yeah, like you just said, and what are you going to do?
Or that segment he did with Candice Michelle where somebody's going down on both of them.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell was that?
Which sometimes there are kind of funny lines Triple H slips in there. I remember during that same night there was a line where he was going to have it where like a bunch of girls were going to flash this one guy, and the joke was that Sean couldn't be there because he's born again. So he's like, "Hey, Sean, is that Mr. Fuji?" And Sean goes running off to look for Mr. Fuji.
Oh, man. So last thing before I go, guys, my question is, number one on the Kayfabe Commentaries DVD list, and by the way, those guys are good guys, and they did a good DVD, and I'm not trashing their DVD at all. This list is not an attempt to say anything that they're crap or anything like that.
What was their top 5?
Their top 5 was Stephanie McMahon is the leader of the ECW Extreme Movement. Number 4 was...
That 5 or 1?
That was number 5. Number 4 was the Finger Poke of Doom.
Okay.
With Hogan and Nash. Number 3 was the Mae Young Hand.
That was a bad one.
Number 2 was Katie Vick. And this gets to my main point. Number 1 on their list, David Arquette wins the WCW World Title. Now, yes, that's bad. I'm not saying it's not bad. I defended it.
You know what? I didn't even think of David Arquette. Didn't even think of it.
Well, I defended it
I
at
completely
the
forgot
time,
about
and here's why I defended it. It wasn't good, and I knew it wasn't good, and I said it wasn't good at the time as well, but I did defend it because there's logic behind it. They were desperate for attention. They were getting killed. They tried something that they hoped would get some media attention. You know, at the time, Friends was the number 1 show on TV still, and their hope was that, the spouse of one of the main characters of that show would result in some kind of media attention. It didn't.
Plus, Scream was a pretty big movie, too, and both of them were in that.
Exactly. So it made sense for the desperation aspect, and that's what people seem to not realize. And if you watch that DVD, they act as though like he won the world title legitimately, when in reality it was DDP who knocked out Bischoff, and he just kind of covered him. But
and no one ever wins a wrestling world title legitimately.
Well,
it's not Cain Velasquez versus Brock Lesnar.
I'm not talking about that. I mean, like, it's not like he,
he didn't win clean.
Did anything. He didn't win anything. It wasn't presented in a way where he beat up a wrestler. It was presented in a way where he won it as a fluke, and that's the way they kept it. I mean, it wasn't presented like he was as tough as the wrestlers. They fully acknowledged the fact that he was a pipsqueak actor. So I don't agree with it being number 1 on the list. I do think that if you made a top 10 list, it would definitely be on the top 10, but number 1 is a little bit of a stretch.
Well, you know what? All 4 lists between you, me, Nick, and the Kayfabe Commentary guys, all the lists are, fairly different. So, so there's just so many bad angles out there that, it's. I'm not even sure how I want to put this. They came up with their list, we came up with ours, and it's like, you know what? There's a lot of shit out there in wrestling. Now, I will say this. The Finger Poke of Doom, I don't agree with being on there because, like you said, it's not an angle. It was a moment. And
exactly.
It was part of the NWO angle, basically. And that was, like, part of the problem with the NWO angle as a whole. But, like you said, it's like that's an individual moment. It's a big one, and it was a bad one, but I don't consider that a whole angle.
No, I agree. And they didn't play off of it. And again, if you watch that DVD, a lot of the guys who clearly didn't see it were presenting it as if Hogan had magical powers in his finger and killed Nash with a finger poke. They didn't get the fact that it was a swerve. You have to give it context. It was a swerve. It was a, we're all together after all kind of thing.
Yeah, but again, dumb swerve, but still.
My bigger issue was just that the sheer stupidity of how they got Goldberg out of the ring, where or out of the arena, where it's like Miss Elizabeth claims he was stalking her and all this stuff.
Well, that had to be reshot. The original angle was that Goldberg had raped her, and that didn't pass standards and practices, so that had to all be reshot.
Well, also I think Goldberg put his foot down and said no. I think they shot the Liz stuff, and then when he found out what it was going to be, he was like, no.
Even if that turns out to not be the case, he didn't want his name associated with that.
Yeah, well, yeah, would you?
With rape, no. With nailing Liz, sure. At the time, yeah.
Well, not now.
Well, yeah, Jesus Christ. Then we have a Katie Vick thing going on, but...
Yeah.
We just keep going back to that, don't we?
And with that pleasant thought, I'm gonna head on off.
All right.
I'm gonna let you guys talk a little bit about the uneventful Raw that was clearly filler.
Oh, it was. I mean, you could watch last week's show and then watch next week's show and not feel like you missed anything.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. You know, let's not even talk about Raw. There's got to be more going on. I mean, there's a little bit of news here and there. I mean, we had the TNA and another world title change in TNA, and kind of the fallout from that. We had the announcement that TNA is working with OVW,
which that's big. That's something that TNA needed, because I feel like a lot of the young guys that they've been bringing in, and for the guys that say, oh, they got to push the young guys. Well, okay, look at some of the young guys they brought in the last couple of years. Rob Terry, Rosie Ladalove, Jesse Neal, who's okay, he's not great. I'm not impressed with the Jesse Sorensen kid. I'm like, where the hell are they doing their scouting? And for a while, it felt like they were just taking kids out of the Team 3D Academy. And I'm like, I don't know what Team 3D is doing over there, but it's not very good. Or these guys are just green as goose shit. I don't know. So it's good that they've struck up this deal with OVW to hopefully develop some young talents and then pull in some, when they do bring guys up to mainstream television, they're a little bit more prepared.
Right. I mean, I know there are people in the WWE that still think it was a stupid move to cut ties with Ohio Valley Wrestling. Because Danny Davis is a great trainer, and he does have a facility that they've worked out for years, and he has a system that works. I mean, you look at a lot of the top guys, the last couple of years in this business, even though we're not the biggest fans of him, John Cena, Randy Orton, Brock Lesnar, Batista, Matt Morgan, the Pope, just to name a few, they all worked a lot. They all spent some significant time in OVW, and so I think that is a good move, and I do agree with you. The TNA does have a situation where they have some talented guys, but sometimes what happens is there's a lot of potential, but they need to work a little bit more. They need some refining. They need a place to go that can kind of smooth it all out. And I'm happy for OVW, and I'm also happy for OVW because independent wrestling is a fucking tough business, and hopefully this will financially secure Danny and Co., who've done a great job, staying open as many years as they have been the next couple of years.
Right, and I heard that according to OVW, they're still going to be dealing with Ring of Honor as well. Is that correct?
Well, I'm not sure what it will all entail. I think Danny Davis owns the arena and the ring that they use. So apparently that opens the door. As for what would happen with OVW talent appearing on ROH, I really don't know right now. I would assume that if they don't have a contract with TNA, they're free and clear to appear. Anyone that may have a contract with TNA would probably not be allowed to work at taping just because TNA doesn't allow their guys to work ROH tapings anymore.
Right, exactly.
Right, So I'm not really sure. I mean, all I know is it's going to provide money to some young wrestlers, and I'm always in favor of that, guys getting more work.
And it also presents a better position for TNA.
Welcome back, James.
What's that?
Yeah. Welcome back.
Are you ever going to actually leave and stay gone? Every week is a big thing.
Wrestlers don't retire. They just, take vacations and come back until they die. So that's kind of what I'm going to do with the show. What I wanted to say is it actually makes TNA look better as well to say that they have their own farm league, which is something that WWE has and TNA has never really had. You know, you can argue that they had things with various places, but never in official capacity. This definitely makes them look larger to have their own kind of farm league and farm system to work within. And you know what? They need new talent on the roster. I think we all would agree with that. Even if you don't agree with it this second, there's always times when the characters they have get stale. So to have a farm league where they can view people on film performing gimmicks and things like that to which they can see if they can use or not is definitely a plus for the company creatively as well.
Right, and I do want to clear this up. It will not be like it was in the WWE. I don't think where TNA will just take over and everyone working that show is under a WWE under a contract with TNA more or less. I think what it will be is that Danny Davis will still run shows with his guys, but TNA guys will be coming in, and guys, younger guys, you know, for example, Rob Terry or Jesse Sorensen or Zema Ion can go and work there and, you know, be trained, you know, and learn a little bit more under, you know, some really great trainers, Danny Davis, Rip Rogers, and I would assume maybe Al Snow will start going back there. Al was involved with OVW for a number of years, and then the end of the WWE relationship changed that. And hello, yeah. So yeah, so I don't think it's going to be a full scale like WWE used to have it, but it will, like James says, this does help TNA out, and it does make them look a little bigger.
It does, and that's some good news for them. They're taking some good steps. And I don't know. I have to wonder if now that Bruce Pritchard's involved in the process, he's apparently head of creative now, and they've got a new vice president in some position somewhere. It's like, who's making all these changes, and who's trying to take these steps with the company?
You know, I think it could. I think part of it is that people are. You know, these could be ideas, you know, people have had for a while. I think, let's be honest. I mean, WWE, I think even back to WCW, they would have developmental leagues. You had the HWA was originally a WCW developmental territory, and they also used Georgia. That could be a Bischoff idea. I don't really know for sure who came up with what, but I would actually like to know because it would be interesting to know who's making these calls.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, that's definitely good news for TNA. I'll give them that, for sure. Now, what they're doing on their television show has me intrigued. I'm not sure if they're rushing this whole Roode and Storm thing, or if they've just like kind of hot-shotted a lot of it, or this could develop into one of their top main event programs in the last few years.
I think it has been hot-shotted, but I think part of it has to do with Kurt Angle being injured and being out, because with him gone, there goes the top heel in the ring. So it's kind of like, God, now we need to get a guy. Now we need to get a guy to turn. Now we need a heel. Unless I mean, I've kind of come to like him the last couple of weeks, but I don't want to see him as a world champion contender. Bully Ray would kind of be the next best option, I think, in a couple different ways. And I really don't want to see that. So I think what happened is they said, okay, Angle's out. And I do think they were eventually going to turn Roode heel anyway. So I think they just said, okay, let's move it up. It's the best option we have right now. But I do think, yeah, it did get hot-shotted because you went from 1 week they're best friends, and the next week Roode bashed them over the head with a bottle.
Right. And you can say part of me thinks that they had this plan since before Bound for Glory because they did the Roode and Storm match where was their taping before Bound for Glory? Was that Kentucky?
Yeah, Kentucky. I'm not sure.
Yeah, okay, well, they did that first match, and that ended very uncleanly. So part of me thinks that maybe they had this plan, and they did that match to kind of keep Storm in the mix, so when he won the world title, it wasn't, like, completely out of nowhere or whatever. So part of me thinks that they actually had this planned. I know some people think, TNA planned things, whatever. But I don't know, just the way it's mapped out, part of me thinks that they've had this planned all along. I don't know. But, well, I thought the match on Impact last week was really good.
Yeah, it was. I mean, well, when you have those two guys, most of the time, unless one of them gets injured or they have a really off night, it's going to be a good match.
Right, and speaking of injuries, Storm has a concussion, and AJ Styles twisted his ankle, right?
Yeah. It's like, that's unfortunate because I think Storm was, I think they're trying to hold off on doing the Storm rematch. I think now that they've done it, and I think even TNA realizes, okay, we really hot-shotted this. I think they want to hold off on doing the immediate rematch. And then, unfortunately, Storm gets a concussion, and he's out for about 2 months. And then AJ was supposed to get the next title shot, only over the weekend he twisted his ankle at a house show.
Right, but
it's weird how AJ almost never gets injured, and then this happens.
Yeah, that is weird how that happens. But I think Storm getting hurt, and I wish Storm the best, and concussions aren't cool or anything. But I think it might help them creatively if he's gone for a while, because I think that'll give some weight to Roode's actions. And it'll give time to, and you've got a character waiting in the wings to face Roode later on. And you've got some time to grow and develop Roode as your heel champion in the meantime. So, creatively, I think Storm being gone might actually help them a little bit.
All right. Well, they posted a video after Impact with the two guys, with Roode's reaction, and it was a really quick promo, but it came off really well. And then they had a thing with Storm where he's backstage, he's throwing stuff around because he's pissed off, and he's reacting, and it came off pretty well. But it was just like a 90-second spot. So I think there's a lot of potential in this story because you do have the story that these two guys were the best tag team in TNA history. All the, everything they've done together, and then, when James Storm won the world title, he actually wanted to hand it to Bobby Roode, and now you have Bobby Roode having turned his back on him. I mean, Mike Tenay had the perfect line. He goes, "That's how you treat a brother? Bullshit."
That was funny, by the way. But yeah, this angle that they're doing with beer money, I think a lot of us who watched TNA back in the old days thought that this is what would eventually happen with America's Most Wanted. And it started to, but then, Chris Harris, through a combination of him being de-pushed and I think him losing his heart, he got
him pissing off people backstage.
He pissed people off backstage? What did he do?
Well, it's just a lot of people say what happened was he would always be the one that complained about getting a singles push. Like, he almost whined about it. And by the time he was finally in a position to do it, no one wanted to push it because they're just like, oh, God, I'm so sick of this whiner. And they said, that's why you have Storm, who was always the company guy and willing to do whatever they asked of him, did get a bit more of a push, then eventually wound up back in the top tag team.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, I was mad when TNA didn't push Chris Harris back then, but, dude, get on a treadmill. I mean, get in shape. I mean, when he showed up to ECW looking the way he did.
ECW.
Yeah, Braden Walker, I mean, that was, dude, get in shape. And then he was at whatever pay-per-view it was. I think it was Sacrifice?
Slammiversary. I thought it was Slammiversary. Am I kind of getting confused? It was earlier this year. I think it was Slammiversary.
It was the same pay-per-view where China showed up.
Yeah, that might have been Sacrifice. Yeah, that was Sacrifice.
Okay.
Well, my first thought was when I heard he was back, I thought, okay, if he's in shape, this can be a really great angle. And then you got to look at him, and it's like he was wearing like his AMW coat, but you could still tell. Yeah, he has not dieted.
Yeah. I mean, he didn't look like he was in the best shape at that pay-per-view. No. I mean, the match wasn't a train wreck.
It wasn't as good as we've seen him being capable of. And I'll be honest.
No, I mean, you go back and watch Chris Harris in 04, I mean, that dude was one of the best.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'll be honest, I don't even know if he had wrestled since he left ECW. I know he was advertised for an appearance, but I don't know if that ever came through. So, I mean, he's not one of those names you hear pop up. You know, I mean, when I hear about frickin', you know, what's his name, Domino, from Deuce and Domino making indie appearances, I never hear about Chris Harris, though. So I'm thinking, you know, does he just not work anymore? Or, I mean, is he retired, or?
He might as well be. I mean, you know, it's a shame because he had all the potential in the world, and it just didn't pan out. So, what can you do?
Just hope that, oh boy, you just look at what he had, and you just wish that it would have worked out different.
Yeah, but, yeah, so is there any other TNA news?
Well, I mean, not anything so big, I don't think. I mean,
well, the OVW thing was obviously big, but
yeah. Well, that and title change were kind of the big TNA news lately.
And WWE, you know, quite honestly, Evan Bourne got suspended, which kind of surprised me.
Yeah, well, apparently, it's not steroids, it's marijuana, or it's synthetic marijuana.
Synthetic marijuana. Well, is it salvia? Is that what it was?
But I have no idea how you pronounce it.
Which, okay, if you don't know about salvia, it's a drug that is legal in most states, and you smoke it, and it basically just go pop in a YouTube video and watch salvia. Type in salvia into YouTube and go watch some videos of people smoking the stuff, and it's pretty remarkable. Actually, Miley Cyrus, when she got caught with that video of her smoking the thing or whatever, she was smoking salvia.
Oh boy. What a recipe.
So maybe that's what Evan Bourne was doing. And of course, I have to think, it's like, all right, when is Mason Ryan going to get a piss test? That dude, if that dude is not on steroids, then I'm a goddamn alligator. I mean, good Lord, man. That dude,
I'm a goddamn alligator. I like that.
Yeah, it was the most random thing that popped into my head.
Well, then evidently you're an alligator, Patrick.
Oh, yeah, Mason Ryan is completely clear. I'm pretty sure his piss could melt the damn cup.
Well, you know, I want to know what's in I want to know if Santino can pass a piss test now since he took the Muppet energy drink.
That's what I said. You know what? That was the first thing that popped out of my mouth when I saw it. I was like, oh, he's going to fail his next wellness pod.
Oh, God. Which, you know what? I think, Patrick, you posted a YouTube video about it. It was so sad to see the Muppets so unfunny.
Oh, and it's not their fault. It's what was written for them and who they were interacting with. It was just so bad. And I was sitting there the whole time thinking, Muppets, you're better than this. You're too good
The only thing that I really enjoyed, apart from the surrealness of seeing them on the stage with the other wrestlers, was the Sheamus and Beaker stuff. That was the only stuff that I kind of, when I saw them walk in the same shot together, I started giggling because I was like, oh, I know what they're going to do, and I thought that was funny. Other than that, yeah, that was, they're above that. They are so above that, and I hope the movie's better than that stuff.
Well,
unless the WWE wrote that movie. I don't think the WWE wrote that movie. I don't think the WWE idiot writers wrote that movie, so the movie's got to be better than that.
Well, you have some good news if you're excited about the Muppet movie. Some test audiences and test screenings have been done, and the reactions have been overwhelmingly positive.
Well, good.
Well, yeah, I love the Muppets. I mean, I'll be honest with you. When I went,
posted on. Go ahead.
I was going to say, when I went to Disneyland, they still have the Muppet 3D show, which was done back when Jim Henson was still alive. You could tell because Kermit still sounded right. And they still do that in a theater, and you know, we were one of like 6 people, 6 families that were still going to it, and I hope that picks up and all that, because it was one of my favorite things when I first went to Disney back in '91, and it's still there 20 years later, and it's still fun. So you know, I've always been a Muppets fan since literally I was in diapers, and you know, I'm looking forward. It's sad that the only movie I'm looking forward to coming out right now is the Muppets, but
from the 3D show, the thing I remember most was Sam the Eagle trying to introduce Mickey Mouse, and it was Rizzo.
That's right. Yep, that was in there. Yeah, and they still have Sweetums come out through one of the side doors as well, which I think is very cool.
Which, by the way, I am stunned they didn't have Sweetums make a run-in.
Good point.
Like, from the second that was announced, in my head I said, oh, God, he's going to pin either Jack Swagger. Sweetums is going to make a run-in, and he's going to pin Jack Swagger, or he's going to pin Dolph Ziggler.
Oh, man. Well, you know what? I was kind of thinking that, too, when they were bullying Gonzo and Fozzy backstage. And I was like, oh, so they're going to bring out the Big Muppet to beat him up.
Yeah. Yeah. Which, I mean, James was right. It was kind of funny when Sheamus said to Beaker, no, I can't make the family reunion this year. But it wasn't as funny as the Muppets can normally be.
No. Well, oh, God, when Piggy and Kermit were on the stage with Vicky Guerrero, I was like, why is Vicky Guerrero there? Go back to Piggy and Kermit, please. I'm suffering.
I'll be perfectly honest, and normally I don't like diva segments. I'm really disappointed they didn't do a segment with Animal running through the Divas locker room yelling, woman, woman, woman.
No, he was on screen for 2 seconds ringing the bell.
Yeah.
Which I'm like, that felt like a waste.
It's kind of like, our special guest ring announcer, Animal. I'm like, okay, so is he going to be like ringing the bell the whole match, you know, or just I mean, for people that haven't seen the old Muppet Show, one of the recurring jokes would be they'd start playing a slow song and Animal eventually go nuts. And that would be the comedy. And, yeah, it'd be like too slow and just would not. It's like, no, they just brought him out for 2 seconds. Like, did they really need to even pack the Animal puppet for that?
No, I agree with you. It was disappointing. And I was in the mindset, because I'm so down on WWE right now, my mindset was, you know what? Just let the Muppets take over for 2 hours. I don't care. Just do a Muppet show. And make it good. I don't really care what you do other than that. And, that's not what happened.
Yeah. Oh, boy.
Who got the Rock coming back?
Yeah, the Rock's coming back, and apparently it's for the first time ever he will ever appear on Raw the way they're acting in the promos for that 3-hour Raw. It's like, Raw has had many epic moments, but for the first time ever, Raw gets rocked. I'm like, what? First time ever? What? Basically, when The Rock started, the only real regular show WWE had was Raw. And like they had superstars and stuff, but I mean, it's like he's been appearing on Raw since his career began. But well, you know, it's just one of those things, like WrestleMania 25 being the 25th anniversary of WrestleMania. We're not supposed to think about it, Nick. I know. And then you have him, and you know, Patrick, you made a great point on your video blog. You said, I'm so glad that John Cena needs The Rock to beat up R-Truth and Miz when he beats them up all on his own 1 week.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and even this week on Raw, they got the win, but it was such, you know, Cena just laughed at him. He's like, all right, whatever. I don't care. I'll get you at the pay-per-view. Like, oh, okay.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, just there's a huge logic hole in this, and I'm going to point it out. The Rock and John Cena hate each other. That's how they're supposed to hate each other. Why in the hell would The Rock agree to come back and help John Cena? You know, it's
well,
like,
why would Cena ask him? Like, why would The Rock be his first option?
Right. If I'm gonna, I mean, that's just it. It's like, okay, I don't like these two guys, so I'm gonna pick another guy I hate. If anything, I'd be like, well, wait a second. This could mean I'd be afraid this guy's gonna turn his back on me since we're supposed to fight in a few months.
Oh, I mean, he screwed him over at WrestleMania, so it's like, well, yeah, exactly. And I wish they had done something different where Cena and Rock were forced to be partners somehow, and so rather than just willingly choose it.
Exactly. I'll be honest, keep The Rock out of the ring. I mean, it's going to feel more special at WrestleMania if we haven't seen him wrestle, at all.
It will, but I think they want to, it'll make Survivor Series actually worth checking out this year, because when was the last time Survivor Series was worth the dough? I mean, I'm thinking back. Maybe the Raw versus SmackDown one in 2005, but other than that, I mean, there really hasn't been a worthwhile Survivor Series in a long time. And, so there's that. Plus, I think it gives The Rock some time to, it gives The Rock some practice time, basically, to kind of...
I guess. I just hope The Rock dyes his beard. Because, the promo on Raw, my first thought was, man, that's a lot of gray in that goatee.
Hey, that's some gray there. Part of me thought that was part of his makeup for the G.I. Joe movie.
And then I was thinking, Roadblock isn't supposed to be that old.
Well, Roadblock is also supposed to talk in rhymes, so I let's hope they drop that.
I'd actually like to see that. I think it'd be kind of hilarious.
The Rock talking rhymes. You better stay clear, or I'll fracture your rear.
Oh boy.
That's WWE. We got The Rock to look forward to. That's kind of cool. Punk is getting the next title shot, and I don't care because they've ruined him. And I mean, that's no knock on him, but
I mean, they blew it. They once again they had the golden goose, and they killed the golden goose.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's like, okay, now that we have now we're going to do it our way, and he's finally ready. I mean, it's like he should never have lost that belt. He should have come back, beat Cena, and you have everyone trying to get the belt off the crazy man. Instead he loses it. Even though he beat Cena, he then drops it to Alberto Del Rio. Punk kind of dropped it out. He says, "All you've said since you showed up was it's my destiny."
No, but Del Rio is one of those boring champions I've seen in a long time. Just throwing that out there.
I'll be honest, I think Ricardo Rodriguez would make a better champion than Alberto Del Rio.
Maybe, I don't know. But I have this fear, based on Nash's promo this week, I have this fear that he's going to get the title shot against Punk. If Punk's going to win the belt, then Nash gets the first title shot. And then there's a distinct possibility that Nash might win the title, which if that happens, oh, good Lord.
Oh, yeah. I'll agree with you. I honestly believe that's going to happen.
The only way I don't see Nash winning the title will be if Triple H screws Nash out of the title, obviously. So.
Well, here's the thing, though. I could also see Nash wins the title from Punk, Triple H wins the title from Nash.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's be honest, Patrick. If there's an opportunity for Triple H to get that belt back, even though it's been how many years since he actually held a world title now, but it's like
it's been a while, since 2009. So yeah.
But you know what? It's kind of like O.J. Simpson. If you see him walking up the street with a knife, you don't think he's going to cut a ribbon or something.
Well, he's rotting in jail right now, so.
Yeah, well.
Yeah. Dude, motherfucker got away with murder. He literally got away with murder, and then he gets himself wound up in jail again. I mean, dude, how dumb are you?
Yeah. Somebody made a joke saying, OJ's first request when he got to jail was he wanted Johnny Carson. Then they informed him he was dead. OJ immediately said, God, I'm fucked.
Yeah, if the gloves are not fit, then you must have quit. But, yeah, I think we're just babbling now. So is that it?
Yeah. Let's call it a night.
All right, let's call it a night. Well, thank you to everybody for listening to us. Thank you to James for setting this up. And thank you, Nick, for staying on the line with me the whole night. And I think Nick bailed. So, all right. So, bye, everybody. And we'll see you when we see you.
There we go. Sorry about that, guys.
All right. So,
no, I didn't stop it intentionally. If it stopped.
Now, do we still have the first portion?
Yes, we do. As far as I know, I believe so. Yes.
Oh, okay.
you know what we should have done? We should have come on the line. We want to say, thank you very much, Mr. Bret Hart, for joining us and giving his exact views on why he will never return to the WWE. We should have had some kind of joke ready.
Which,
Actually,
by the way, I'm going to take a stab at Bret Hart here, and I love Bret Hart to death. I'm a huge Bret Hart fan. But, dude, you know, Hogan's match where he did almost nothing was better than your match where you did almost nothing. Just throwing that out there.
He's going to track you down and kill you.
I'm just saying, Hogan outperformed you, buddy.
All I'm saying here, guys, and I'm going to probably leave soon with this thought process, okay?
Uh-oh.
All right, we used to have a tagline called "The Rules Have Changed." That was part of our tagline. I got a new one for the site.
Uh-oh.
Ready? Wrestling Epicenter. We're here because we're not all there.
Yeah.
I think that works. I think that works for us.
I don't know what the fuck you nuts are talking about. I'm completely here.
All right. Yes, but where are you?
I'm in Omaha, Nebraska.
Oh, okay.
Well, where do you think I am? Have I ever mentioned that I was moving?
Not that I'm aware of, no. Just jobs, but I think you mentioned that last week on the air, anyway.
Yeah, well, not sure if I did, but hopefully my boss never listens to this because I haven't actually told them yet that I'm looking for a new job.
Well, good luck to you. Good luck to you.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure you got sick of being mugged and held up at gunpoint. So,
can I make a comment here real quick? And I want to go back to the AWE event real quick. The main event was actually Kevin Nash and Diamond Dallas Page versus the Rock and Roll Express, and they sent home Robert Gibson and Diamond Dallas Page like at the very beginning of the match. So basically, there was no point for them to even be there, really. So there was a one-on-one match between Ricky Morton and Kevin Nash based on something I remember, but I'm willing to bet nobody else does, which was a War of the Words from 1999 between Nash and Morton on their websites.
Wait.
I guarantee you nobody remembers that except me.
Wait, Ricky Morton has a website?
Oh, God, I don't know. Yeah,
Because considering how much that guy's in the run for not paying child support, you'd think he'd have no time to update anything.
I was about to say that. I was about to say nomoneyforchildsupport.com or something like that would be his website. Deadbeatdad.com. He and Ric Flair share a website.
Oh, Bozinga.
Well, no, from what I understand, it's not that Flair doesn't pay his kids; he doesn't pay his bills.
Just ask High Spots.
A Ring of Honor.
By the way, whatever happened to that NWA title belt? The last I think I heard of it was High Spots said they had it as collateral, and somebody else said he had put it up for collateral with them. And they were like going to court to fight it out.
I don't know, but if it ever shows up on WWF TV, it'll be blurred out.
Yeah.
Pixelated.
Which they did that with the Dusty Rhodes DVD, too.
Did they really?
Seriously?
At least on the cover. Like, the cover is a shot of Dusty wearing the NWA World Title belt, and it's almost kind of like they whited it out. Like, cause it's real, like, it's like you can tell he's wearing a belt, but they just completely have, like, whited out the details.
Huh.
Well, if they have to censor part of the picture, then why use it as the cover?
See, that's just it. Are there a million other Dusty Rhodes pictures you could have used?
Yeah.
The polka dots with Sapphire. That would have been one that I would put on the cover. Real quick question here, guys, and that kind of plays into this, and I'm going to leave pretty soon, but my question is, did you see the commercial where they got this guy's, I got lots of problems, son, but bitches ain't one, or whatever the hell it is, and they say the same line like 30 times? I don't care if the song is catchy, and personally I don't find it that catchy. Why are we using songs where we have to censor them on commercials? Why don't we just pick one that you don't have to censor?
A good question. I don't know. I haven't seen this commercial that you're talking about, but
it's on a lot of the football games. Nick probably has.
Yeah, is it a car commercial?
I don't even know what they're advertising, to be honest with you. I think so, but I don't even know. But I was just amazed that they like, why are we using songs where we have to censor the commercial? Why don't we just pick a different song? I'm sure the artist, even if you want to stick with the same artist, just pick a different song that doesn't have to be censored.
Well, if it's a rap artist, I don't think they do songs where they don't swear.
Get the Walmart version of the CD then, or something, and you know where it's censor that or bleep that or something. I guess that's what they did, but.
All right, so that's James. All right, I think we need to get like a soundbite for this, for something like James Walsh's crazy random thought of the week.
Yeah, my Andy Rooney moment. Yeah,
why was that Jim Duggan never world champion?
What's sad is I'm sure James actually has had that thought. He probably has sat up at night just thinking, yeah, he was really over. And I always thought his matches were better than people give him credit for. I mean, sure, he wasn't more popular than Hogan, but you had that whole down period. Everything is about as comparable as Ric Flair in terms of popularity as Flair and the Ultimate Warrior at the time. I could just see James doing that, even like waking up Cassie, trying to
justify how I told you Duggan should have been world champion.
Well, he's trying to force Cax into every top 5 list we have.
As for the record, he had a pretty good match.
And if we had done that top 5 authority figures list, I'm sure somehow he would have argued Hacksaw Jim Duggan as a janitor would have qualified as him as like the authority
figure. The guest referee in the penalty box match from WCW Sin in 2001. He was the best goddamn special enforcer referee ever.
Oh, God.
Better than Mike Tyson. Actually, you know what? Mike Tyson wasn't that good. He can't do a proper 3 count.
He's better than Muhammad Ali.
Yeah.
Dude just kind of came out there and just waved as the onset of Parkinson's began.
He also was at, and it was sad. At Halloween Havoc '94, he was in the crowd, and Hogan went over and hugged him. And you know, Muhammad Ali, we're going back 17 years now. He could barely lift his arms at that point. I mean, he's really, God bless him, but he's not doing well.
Oh yeah.
Well, it happens with a lot of boxers, actually. I know he has Parkinson's, but go back, look up some boxing stars from like the 50s and see how coherent they are.
Well, I don't want to be that depressed, Patrick.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right. Well, anyway, I think we should get back to wrestling, and I think the other story that we probably want to talk about, at least a little bit, is still TNA related, and this is probably the one where spoiler alert.
Major spoiler alert.
Yeah, major spoiler alert. All right. Tomorrow night on TNA Impact, longtime TNA employee Jake Storm will win the TNA World title. And this is a classic example of kind of getting what we wanted, just not how we wanted it.
Yeah, we accused the WWE of that when they pushed Sheamus. But yeah, we want new stars, but not him, and not this quickly. What the hell are you doing?
Well, I'll say this. There has been a little side story that they've been doing with Storm and Angle, where Storm had a match with Angle, and Angle cheated to win, and then Angle came out and threw him in the steps during his match with Bobby Roode, and even like last week on the show was, Angle was trying to turn Storm against him. It's like, so there is something on there for those two to have another match. The problem is, I'm just thinking to myself, on Sunday, you could have put the belt on Bobby Roode gotten the belt off of Angle, who apparently needs time off, and then you could have done the James Storm Bobby Roode feud. Because I assume that's where they're going to go at some point with this. I mean,
yeah, that might even be the main event of their next pay-per-view. Who knows? But this reminds me of, and I'm going to reference Ring of Honor here. They did this earlier this year with the American Wolves. We all thought Davey was going to get the belt, and then out of nowhere they just put it on Eddie Edwards, and it's like, as somebody who does not follow Ring of Honor regularly, my first reaction was, who the fuck is Eddie Edwards?
Well, but let's not go that far. I mean, at least I think even casual TNA fans are aware of who James Storm is. I want to make this clear. I'm not bashing James Storm on this.
No, not at all.
I think he's probably one of my 5 favorite wrestlers right now. And I think, and he's one of those guys that, you have wanted to see 4 years get this kind of an opportunity. But in terms of who I think is the better option to be the world champion, it's Bobby Roode. I think he should, especially with all the build they gave to Roode in the Bound for Glory series. And I don't say this again, I absolutely love Storm, and I'm thrilled that he's getting an opportunity like this. And I am going to enjoy this match on tomorrow. I am going to be like, yeah, hey, James Storm is the world champion. Way to go, man. But I do feel like the better option is Bobby Roode. And part of it is, I think, from a character standpoint. I think it's from, I do think mainly from a character standpoint. That's the big issue, because I do think they're together. They're equals in the ring. I don't know. I just feel like Bobby Roode fits the mold of is someone that's more likely to be the big breakout star than James Storm. I feel like with Storm, there's a little bit extra you have to do, but I just think the better move would have been to just put the belt on Roode, and then if you wanted to, try feuding with James Storm. Even if you didn't want to turn Storm heel, which I guess they don't because he's beating Angle, have it be, have Roode even say, look, if there's one guy who got screwed out of an opportunity to beat me, it was James. If there's one guy who I know knows me better than anyone, it's James. Let's do the match. Let's see who really is the best member of your money. So, I mean, I don't want to knock Storm again. I just want to keep repeating that. I think he is deserving of his opportunity. I just feel like at this time, the better option was Bobby Roode.
And I'll say this. Number one, why should I order your pay-per-views again when you end Bound for Glory like that, and then you do the big title change at the Impact tapings? That's just disappointing in of itself, and I feel like I wasted my money. Number two, I would be saying this if Storm had been the guy that had won the Bound for Glory series and they had given that great build-up too. And I would have said absolutely. And they'd screwed Storm over at Bound for Glory and then did this with Roode and had him win the title. I'd be saying the exact same thing. It's just a horrible mishandling of your build-ups and your characters. And you're right, Bobby Roode was the better option at this point just based on how they had built him up at this point in time following the Bound for Glory series and leading into Bound for Glory. It's just, I'm just flabbergasted with how they handled this whole thing.
Right, and I'll say this, and I know he's not the head writer anymore, but this stinks of a Russo swerve. And I'm not saying I don't believe he did it, but it's in that vein that everyone hates. That the swerve so often Russo gets credit for. This is in the vein of that. Like this is, it's like, oh yeah, everyone thinks it's going to be Roode, let's put it in Storm. And now from what I understand, I you got to be somewhat careful with this, but and there was a radio interview that he did where Hulk Hogan was going around telling people, well, Storm, Roode's not ready, and look, while I'll give Hogan credit on the match he had on Sunday, and he's not the only one to blame because there are people above him who can override him, apparently. But for him to say stuff like Roode's not ready really is the kind of thing that pisses me off about Hulk Hogan's involvement with TNA, because I'm always convinced that I always get the feeling that Hogan clearly is always going to look out for Hogan. I'm feeling here at this point in your life, man, start giving back a little. And the fact that he was even saying that 24 hours before the pay-per-view, I'm like, seriously, man, this is the guy that's about to main event you're the biggest pay-per-view for the company you work for, and you're telling people he's not ready in public? You're not even voicing it behind the scenes. You're voicing it in public.
Yeah, I agree. That was very stupid of him. And it does make you wonder, did Hogan want to recreate Mania 18 where he outshines the main event, and so the whole ending of the main event had to be changed just to make sure that happened? I don't know.
Well,
I wasn't back there. I don't know what goes on, but it does make you wonder.
Well, I'll say this. I don't know Hulk Hogan personally. I've never even done an interview with him, unlike, James, I think, has done. But a lot of the stuff I read, a lot of the stuff I see, a lot of the stuff that I hear tells me that this is the guy that is the single most driven person to preserve and help himself under any circumstance. I think you hit the nail on the head, Pat. And I don't even think that sometimes I don't think it's something that he does intentionally, but he's so ingrained with the quote-unquote wrestling game that he can't see the forest through the trees, and you have Hogan and Bischoff going on, Facebook and Twitter saying stuff like, suck it, haters, and, nobody sees the big picture. I'm like, you and I, Patrick, I think do have a pretty good grasp of the big picture. We're not the average Internet fans, and we think this was a bad move. And I even feel like Storm deserves better. Like, if he was finally going to be the world champion, he deserves to be built up more. He deserves to have that moment be like, instead of everyone going, really? That's what they did? People should be like, oh, yeah, I know he could do it. I feel like he deserves better for his first championship reign, because this is a guy that has busted his ass for, all these years in TNA. This is a guy, has been a part of how many great matches for this company. This has been a guy that I was almost always afraid, like, he's never really going to get his due for how good a worker he is. Because, most of his career has been in tag teams.
And it has been. But here's my concern, and this is the truth, and I don't know if you guys are debating the Hogan factor here or not.
A little bit, but we're not bashing him completely, but we are saying it does stink that he might have had. I feel like he had a hand in it, but I'm saying shame on a lot of people who could call his bluff and didn't.
They should have. I think they should have. I'm the biggest Hogan defender in the world, but I think that Bobby Roode should have won this match. That said, when Hogan goes on these rants, people take it, oh, he's being a dick to AJ. No, he's telling the truth. I'm sorry, but he's telling the truth. AJ's the best worker in the company, in my opinion. I think he still is, even though his stock has fallen over the past 2 years. But you'll never see AJ Styles on the O'Reilly factor, not unless he snaps and kills his family. You're never going to see. You're not going to see AJ Styles do these shows on Jay Leno, on The Tonight Show, anything like that. And it's a shame, but what we need to do is we need to find somebody, because we can't have a 60-year-old figure of the company as he gets older and older and just not create a new guy who can do those things. Yes, I agree, the best guy to go out and do these talk shows and defend TNA and bring it to the public is Hogan right now. But we need to have somebody new go out there with him. And
James, I'm going to say this. AJ's issue is not that he's not doing these shows with Hogan. His issue is Hogan goes on these shows and he buries people. He buries the roster. That's the kicker. I mean, quite honestly, I'm just going to ask, I'm just going to say this. What if in 1984, when Hulk Hogan was scheduled to win the world title, what if, Vince McMahon had said, well, Andre, what do you think of Hulk Hogan? If Andre had said, Hogan not ready to be champion.
Hogan not ready, boss.
He's not ready for champion.
Hogan not ready, boss. Yeah, something like that, yeah.
Well, I'm just going to say this. If you had that's the issue. I think the issue is not that AJ's like, well, God, I should be the one doing these shows. I think AJ's issue is...
That's not what...
Why are you going on these shows and bashing Bobby Roode before he's going to main event pay-per-view?
It's like... it's sort of like... I'll use football again as an example. It's like, what's his name, from the Jets, calling out the offensive line,
Antonio Holmes.
It's Antonio Holmes saying, well, whose fault it is? It's all the offensive line's fault because they can't protect Mark, and then Mark can't throw a decent pass. People are kind of saying, hey, a lot of the NFL players that are analysts now are saying, you shouldn't say this stuff in public. Keep it in-house. Keep it in the family. I think,
and I agree, and I don't think that Hogan should have gone in and say it. But when they're getting into the Twitter wars, Hogan's saying, well, you're not going to see AJ Styles do the Tonight Show. And he's right. And unfortunately, that is something that TNA needs to work on, and that's something that unfortunately WWE has always had over everybody else, is that they've found the right guy who they can send out there to represent their company well, and even if he's not the greatest worker, looking at you, John Cena, he's not going to embarrass the company when he goes out and does it. The rare example of where they had both is a guy that they sent out who honestly never really got the opportunity to do all those talk shows the way he probably should have, but was a great worker, and that was Edge. And whenever he did go out and do those things, he made a great showing for the company because here's an intellectual guy who has the rock star look, who can actually freaking work. I mean, Edge is going to go down as one of those guys that we're going to miss a hell of a lot.
He never became as big as he should have.
Absolutely not.
But again, James, though, here's the thing. Hogan is not arguing a point that's valid. He goes, well, these guys are never going to be on the Tonight Show. That's not their issue with Hogan right now. Their issue isn't, I think the people in TNA are very realistic of knowing the problems they have in the company. They know that, they're lacking in a huge, recognizable name that they created themselves, that people around the world know. They're aware of that. But, again, their issue with Hogan is when he goes on these shows, he doesn't mention the company, he mentions it in passing, or he comes out and says about the man that's about to main event, he's not ready.
I was about to say that, though. They're never satisfied, though, because if he does these shows and isn't wearing a TNA T-shirt with the TNA flag hanging from his bald spot, people are getting angry, saying, he's not defending the company enough. But if he does mention the company and they're actually getting a discussion about the roster, he said something bad about somebody. It's like, I have opinions, too.
Well, look, James,
and I got to be honest, watch the tape back.
He doesn't love the company enough. He's all about promoting this company.
Roode should have won the match. Roode should have won that match. I don't deny it. I'm not going to say that he shouldn't have. But I will say this. I do think there was a large, and Nick is going to go nuts on this, I think there was a large number of people in that crowd who didn't know who the hell he was.
Really? You're honestly going to say that? That people didn't know who this guy was? A group full of TNA fans didn't know who Robert Roode was?
Based on the crowd reaction in comparison to the match prior, I don't
the match prior, which freaking had everything thrown at it. I mean, we talk about it all the time. Crowds get tired. We always talk about the popcorn match. Now, you even said it last week. There should have been a filler match between
the Hardy
and
Jarrett thing should have been between the two matches, I think. Absolutely.
Right. Well, here's the thing, James. Crowds get tired. And to a certain extent, you're acting like nobody responded. There was a pretty good-sized pop.
It was a fair pop. I'll say that. But I do think there was a portion of it of, who is this guy? And I will say that even in my household where I was watching it, and I admit we don't watch TNA as regularly as we should have. I do. I watch it every week, but, I kind of watch it, while Cassie's having a bath at night. And I kind of watch it, then, right before I crash. So not everybody knew, but everybody's like, well, who's that guy? And it's like, he's one of the guys from Beer Money. And they're like, oh, okay. I mean, it was a level of that. And I don't think that's, in my opinion, that's no excuse for not giving him the belt. And that's the truth. I think that he should have won it.
All right, but James, these were not some casual fans that were never watching the show. Those people are TNA fans. You're not going to go to a pay-per-view if you don't know who the show is. And you keep talking about people didn't know who he was. People didn't know who he was. Well, do these people not see the months leading up to the pay-per-view where he was on all these different matches? Have they not seen the years that he's worked for this company as one of its bigger homemade stars? Did they not see the countless number of video packages they did with this guy talking about his goals, his dreams, his history? I mean, honestly, to say people didn't know who he was, that is just you making shit up. I'm sorry. I honestly think you're nuts. Nuts to say nobody. No, there was a group of people that didn't say who he was, didn't know who he was. It's insane to even say that.
I'm not saying that it's a valid excuse. I'm just saying that it's a true, I think, occurrence. But I do agree with you. He should have won that match.
That's like me. Well, you know what? That's like me saying people only pop for Hogan turning babyface because because they like to see T-shirts get torn, or they're conditioned to react to that. No, people, there are people that like Hulk Hogan and want to see him as a babyface. I'll admit that. But you're making shit up when you say no one knew who he. When you're saying people didn't know who he was. You're making up this.
You know what?
You're going. It's a fair pop. It's a fair pop.
Maybe not in the arena. Okay. Maybe not in the arena. But I will say this: when Hogan's doing ESPN, the guys on ESPN wouldn't know who he was. However, I will say this: those ESPN guys on SportsCenter consistently over the past couple of weeks have brought up Ric Flair's name, like a lot. Going to commercial break, they've been wooing.
Okay.
I think Flair should be world champion for that reason.
What?
That I don't mean. I'm making shit up on that one. I just wanted to hear Nick go nuts on that.
Tell you what, I'll say this. Going back to the James Storm thing, I'll say this. Thank God it wasn't Jeff Hardy. Because when Roode lost, I was like, oh my God, they're going to give the belt to Jeff Hardy. That's what they're going to do. And so far they haven't done that. I don't think Hardy should be putting that spot ever again. And the history's kind of on my side there. So, yeah. So at least they put it on somebody that's reliable.
Well, here's the thing. I don't think right, the internet was reporting it, there was going to be another Jeff Hardy run. I think that was, Meltzer and Johnson and that fat, stupid son of a bitch, Jason Powell, who says, I still don't understand how you score points in the Bound for Glory series. I really don't understand. So they win matches?
It's not that hard. Dude, it's not that hard. How dumb are you?
Well, he even said it says, it's the most complicated scoring system I've ever seen. I mean, they get 7 points for a win. He kept getting hooked up on the number 7. I'm like, okay, what school and what state did you go to? Because I need to make sure to completely avoid that when I have children.
I guess football's too complicated for him. Touchdowns worth 6 points with an extra point giving you 7? I don't get it.
I mean, he was still talking about it. He brings it up all the time, like he was talking. He was talking, I guess, like Sanjay Dutt or whatever did an interview about that All Wheels Wrestling pilot. He was like, well, I guess TNA got the scoring system from All Wheels Wrestling, but the All Wheels Wrestling system seems a lot easier to understand since you only get 1 point for every victory. I'm like, dude, are you that stupid that after the thing's over you're still trying to bitch about it? Oh, God. I think there are people doing news, we all know, there's a fair amount of it that is just complete and utter bullshit speculation. I think the reports that Jeff Hardy was going to get another run was just like people saying, Roode didn't win it, but Jeff Hardy's back. That means Hardy's going to get it, which, admittedly, Patrick was...
I didn't read that on the internet. I assumed that myself. I was like, oh, God, that's what they're going to do. And so far they haven't, which is good.
There was a part of me that was afraid of that. Like, I was very afraid, especially like when he had a face-to-face with Kurt Angle, I was like, oh, God, Roode's going to lose. They're going to do Angle versus Hardy. It does look like for the immediate future, it's going to be Angle versus Jarrett. So,
or Hardy versus Jarrett.
Hardy versus Jarrett. So, at least for like the next month, we kind of have an idea. As for what goes on from here on out, well, we can certainly give our opinion, but we'll see how it all plays out.
And by the way, building off of what you said about the wrestling media, I have to say I'm still waiting for Cena versus Rock to be canceled. I'm still waiting because that was supposed to happen. That new story that came out, it's like some high-ranking official in the WWE, who we're not going to name, is being reported by some anonymous source that obviously we're not going to name, that Cena versus Rock may or may not be canceled at WrestleMania 28, and they try to pass that off like it's news. Really, and I believe that was PW Insider that broke that one. So, yeah, that's how credible you are.
Well, these are still the people that, like, the night Sabu got fired from TNA when AJ Styles pinned him, like you would think they would have. You would have think that they raped Sabu backstage. They were like, Like, he just deserves so much better than the way they put him out. How can they do that to Sabu of all people? I'm like, because he's very,
if they'd done it the other way around, if they'd done it the other way around, where Sabu had pinned AJ, the whole world would have been on fire about how a TNA original had been pinned by a has-been. So,
right, and here's
whatever.
The stipulate. At this point, they were wrapping up the EV2 story, so you had to get those guys out of there. And having AJ pin Sabu is logical. I'm sorry. Sabu at his best with a guy that hit some cool high spots, but botched a lot. And
watch
any Botchamania. So please don't convince me that he had. Any one of the things at this point, Sabu can contribute anything in terms of a long-term storyline to any wrestling company.
Yeah,
is an idiot who's just a Sabu mark, and his name is Gabe Sobalski.
Too true.
Dragon Gate USA. We're gonna bring Sabu in. He's gonna team with some guy named AR Fox, and they're gonna fight the Doof. Dragon Gate USA, where we come up with the worst names ever for stables. Kamikaze USA. Blood Warriors. Typhoon. Yeah. Hello?
Hello.
All right.
Well, yeah, I mean, my comment here, guys, Dragon Gate USA is if you're considered a poor man's Ring of Honor,
you're really screwed.
That's like being a poor man's homeless person.
Ouch, dude.
Oh,
I mean, we're talking bag lady shitting in her pants and taking it out of her leg.
Right, not that there isn't good talent on Dragon Gate. That's not what we're saying, and they don't. We're not saying that they don't have good matches. It's just that their stature in the American wrestling scene it is what it is.
No, and I got defensive with one of them because they put out some tweet on. I'll say tweet on Facebook because I'll just be like getting a Diet Coke out of a Pepsi machine or something like that. But they put out a
status update. You mean?
Yeah, status update. They put out a status update basically challenging TNA and all that. And I'm like, oh yeah, great. What channel are you on? I'll watch you.
Oh, that's a great.
What time are you on? Oh, if you go to www.la, and I'm like, look, I'm sorry, and I know TNA is much smaller than WWE, but their darkest day was when they had their Impact shows on the Internet. And I think
that was pathetic. I do remember that, yeah.
And those were their darkest days of all, right? And these shows are at that level. They're at the level of TNA's darkest days, and they're sitting there saying, oh, well, we're superior. And it's like, you can argue that your show is more entertaining, but you can't argue to be bigger because you're not even on TV.
Well, Case, I'll even say this. Those dark days, TNA had a deal in place. The problem was they had to wait for the WWE's deal to expire before they could go on Spike. They were doing it because it's like, well, shit, our deal with Fox is up, and we can't get them to extend to, a couple of extra weeks. Spike wants us, but they got to wait for the WWE to show up because WWE isn't stupid like ECW and doesn't have a no-compete clause, I guess, with the company. And, so look, those dark days, I mean, it was a brief dark period. It's like, I'd say it was a brief dark period. Does Dragon Gate USA even have, like, an opportunity to do what Ring of Honor does right now? Have, like, a syndication deal? Not that I hear.
Well, Ring of Honor, I mean, I rip on Ring of Honor a lot, but they've been around 10 years now, guys, and they make great strides, and, it's a nice company, and my only problem with Ring of Honor, and I said it before and I'll say it again, is their fan base. And it's like, that's the main reason I can't be a Rush fan, the band Rush. It's like, yes, I like their music, but your fans are so goddamn pretentious that I can't possibly call myself a fan at the risk of sounding like one of those sons of bitches.
Well, the problem is now Ring of Honor is being run by the biggest style fan like that. His name is Jim Cornette. And I have got to go to work, so I'm going to close on that. I'm going to say in closing, fuck you, Jim Cornette, you fat, stupid son of a bitch. You're not helping anything. Retire already, you dumb motherfucker.
I thought that was going to be what you were going to say about Hulk Hogan going into this week, honestly.
I didn't want to get into you again.
Yeah, well, whatever. Yeah, I'll give you that I'm probably making crap up. Maybe people at home would say who was Robert Roode, but I think the live crowd might have known. But yeah, I'm just trying to come up with an excuse. He should have won the belt. I will not deny that. But I'm looking forward to seeing what the hell happens on Impact. Because honestly, before I talked to Patrick today, I did not read the spoilers because I wanted to see it myself, and I was stunned. So I'm looking forward to seeing this.
Okay.
Is it on tomorrow night where it happens?
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, guys. Have a good night. Thanks again, everybody, for choosing WrestlingEpicenter.com. Have a good day. Bye-bye.